Lecturing Trump.
My bishop. This is not a Christian organization at all. This is a very angry, hateful organization run by dreadfully unhappy middle-aged lesbians, which is exactly what it is. The Biden administration wanted to kill Trump. I mean, there's no doubt.
Do you genuinely think?
Of course I know that. Why is Putin my enemy? He's never done anything to me. Oh, you're a Putin puppet? No, I'm not. I'm an American. Platforming! Platforming! Talking to people we disagree with! No! How can you say Churchill saved Great Britain when it's in its current condition?
Well, you could say he certainly saved it at the time.
So you're in a military alliance with Joseph Stalin? You shut the fuck up. You have no right to lecture me about anything, okay? Meghan Markle does not represent black people in the United States. I don't know if you knew that.
No question she doesn't. You see,
I spent 35 years there, basically my whole life there. And I had to leave ultimately because I was perceived as close to Trump, and it was very hostile, really hostile. I don't think Washington is a liberal city in the true sense of liberal. It's not open or relaxed, but it's institutional. You know, it's based on the federal government, and the way things are, the status quo is very important to the people who live there, and anyone who seeks to disrupt it is really hated. I mean, Idi Amin would get a far warmer welcome in my neighborhood than Donald Trump got. Idi Amin is fine, world leader, it's okay. Donald Trump, not allowed. And so to be greeted warmly in Washington, really because of Trump, it had nothing to do with me, but people were happy that Trump got elected in Washington. So I don't fully understand what's going on, but I was shocked by it.
I noticed it. I went to my first ever rally by any politician. I went to the Madison Square Garden rally. Happened to just got to New York, and I thought, I'm going to go down there. And I spoke to President Trump in the morning, and I told him I was going to go down. And he said, you're going to enjoy it. It's like a rock concert.
Yes.
And it kind of is. His rallies are like rock concerts. But I thought, middle of Manhattan, right before an election, I remember 2016, I thought it could be mayhem down there. I was worried about where I was going to be dropped and whether going to be tens of thousands of protesters, marches through the streets of New York, very liberal city again. And it was extraordinary. I was there for a few hours, and there were 50,000 people outside, but they were all trying to get in. They were Trump supporters without tickets. And I said to the Secret Service, how many protesters turned up? 150 people turned up in the heart of Manhattan to protest. And I thought then, after he got shot, he's going to win. And I thought after Biden got politically shot, it was even more likely he'd win, because I thought that they're going to coronate Kamala in this ridiculous manner. She was hopeless the first time around. It's not going to work. Even more chance of him winning. But by the time I got to that rally, I was like, he's home and dry. I mean, he's going to win big.
Yes. I thought that too. I was shocked by it. And I thought, is it a kind of surrender? Is it, Trump just built a bigger siege ramp and just knocked down the walls?
Well, the resistance just collapsed.
But the resistance was fake in the first place. So they used, in my country, and I know yours as well, they used race politics to make everyone shut up. Like, you can't talk or you're a racist. And the truth is that was enforced by unhappy liberal white ladies. And there are not that many of them, actually. And they had like a hammerlock on the culture of my country and really oppressed it. And then when they took power through Joe Biden or attempted Kamala Harris, they did like a terrible job. They just didn't do a good job. And so the second somebody just said out loud, like, this is all nonsense. Like, these people don't know what they're doing. The race politics stuff is fake. Look at all the black people outside the rally. All the Hispanic guys love Trump. It's nonsense. You don't have to obey anymore. And all the liberal white ladies are like, oh, yes, you do. And everyone's like, shut up, liberal white ladies. Like, we're sick of this. The
fact that Trump won
the menopausal, angry liberal chick was just too much. And so it's like Liberation Day.
The fact that Trump won the Hispanic vote was truly extraordinary.
Ever met a liberal Salvadoran? No, there's not one. Of course not. The whole thing was totally fake. And it was a certain class of people. It wasn't just menopausal liberal white ladies, though they were in charge, ruling through fear. But it was a whole class of people whose cart was being overturned by Trump, and they used kind of symbolic figures like Meghan Markle, as you found out, as their proxies to hold power. But those proxies never represented the groups they supposedly represented. Meghan Markle does not represent black people in the United States. I don't know if you knew that.
No question she doesn't. Don't worry, I'm very familiar. She doesn't represent anybody.
Of course
other
not.
Than a very elite, hypocritical group of people who are really going to go down in history as the most hypocritical group of people ever.
And the most incompetent. Like, they don't know how the power grid works. They can't fix a car. They don't know anything. They're totally useless. They're parasites. And when given the chance to rule, they like wrecked the country because they don't know how to do anything. And it was all a lie. And it just turns out you can get pretty far in aggression. And there's sort of a famous battle at Gettysburg, the pivotal battle of the Civil War in the United States, where the Union, a Union detachment led by a guy from Maine called Joshua Chamberlain, who was a history professor at a college in Maine, led a charge with no ammunition. And they just yelled loud enough that the Confederates like, oh my gosh, and they surrendered. That was an honorable thing to do. A very similar thing just happened in the United States where like these super angry, unhappy people acting out of the agony of their own barren personal lives were like, I'm in charge because you're a racist. And everyone's like, okay. I mean, they had no bullets in the gun, actually.
What was fascinating to watch it all go down in the last 2 years was that you could go back 2 years and Trump appeared to be dead and buried politically, like it was over. All the momentum was swinging behind people like Ron DeSantis. It was like the party were desperate to move on from Trump. He was really in the wilderness, apparently floundering and apparently over. And then almost from the moment they started the attempt to put him in prison, the lawfare as it's become known.
Right.
From the moment they started that, I just noticed, I mean obviously you couldn't fail to notice it, but his poll numbers began to tick up and up and up. And the more they did it and the more cases they threw at Trump, the more popular he grew. What do you think that was about?
I think it's about exactly what you said. It was the moment, I think it was August of 2022 when they raided his wife's underwear drawer in an armed raid at Mar-a-Lago on a documents charge, and then tried to tell us he had nuclear secrets in his dressing room or something. It was also stupid. It was so obviously political persecution conducted by the Justice Department, which in our tradition, in our country, like you can't do that. That is a true attack on democracy. It was really at that moment, I think, that, I mean, I was on vacation with my kids and my wife and kids, and I read that. I was in a foreign country, and I thought, ooh, he's going to be president. And then
did you? You instinctively felt
instantly
if they're going to try and do this
instantly. And I said that to my son said that to me. We're sitting smoking a cigar, and he's like, Trump's going to win. And I thought, he works in politics, so he's a little better at this than I am. But I was like, yeah, that's totally true. And then the opposition, he had a couple, I thought, very capable people who I like. Ron DeSantis, prime among them.
Yeah.
And the problem with DeSantis was not that he was incompetent. He's supremely competent. And I think he did a wonderful job in Florida. And I really like Ron DeSantis, but he was totally a marionette of his donors, utterly. And that became really clear on like the war in Ukraine. Like Ron DeSantis comes out and says, oh, the war in Ukraine's not central to American national security. And Ken Griffin, his biggest donor, reels him in. The next day, Ron DeSantis is like, oh no, it's really important that we continue to send hundreds of billions to Zelensky or whatever. And then his donors demand a hate speech law in Florida. He pushes it, it passes. It was too obvious. I would say this to his face. I hope he sees this because I mean it with love. You can't be a pure puppet of your biggest donors. Everyone's influenced by the people around him. Donors have a great deal of influence, inordinate influence probably, but you can't do exactly what they say every time. And it made DeSantis look weak, and it made him look controlled. And this is a moment where people are kind of hip to that trick and they sort of know the politicians, you know what I mean, aren't really acting on their behalf or even independently. They're acting because some billionaire told them to do what they're doing. And I think DeSantis was just too obvious about that, and it destroyed him. And
when the lawfare continued, it seemed to me the tipping point where I was convinced Trump would win was the attempt to prosecute him for ultimately what he was convicted of doing, which was shuffling a bit of paperwork over an alleged one-night stand with a porn star 18 years before, which on every level was so ridiculous. And I immediately looked at the polls, and what was fascinating was, I mean, no Americans thought this was a good idea to go after Trump over something so trivial, to actually drag an American president for the first time through a criminal court over something so pathetic and so inconsequential, so meaningless, was such an obvious example, it seemed to me, of a petty, political, spiteful move to try and shut Trump down. And by doing it over Stormy Daniels, it just seemed to me, well, if you're going to do this, he's going to win the election. Americans are not going to put up with this.
With respect, I don't think the president handled it in exactly the right way. I would have said, all right, everybody here in this room, all my judges arrayed against me, raise your hand if you haven't sent money to your girlfriend or boyfriend. I mean, let's be honest. Like, let's make that the new standard. If you're an American politician and you've ever sent money to your girlfriend or boyfriend, because like a lot of them, those guys have boyfriends, then you're disqualified. So we're going to make that the new standard.
Then there's no Congress.
No, I'm serious. It was like Matt Gaetz, like, oh, we're going to leak the, ethics committee investigation we did on it. And Gaetz said something which I wish had come true, which is, okay, fine, let's leak all the ethics committee investigations, all the sealed investigations into sitting members of Congress. I mean, if you want to play that game, let's play the game, right? And I spent my life there.
Because it is a game. I mean,
that was only a game.
It was a political game.
The supreme hypocrisy of, people like Mitch McConnell, or pick one, with personal lives that would not withstand scrutiny. They wouldn't. And, God can sort that out. It's not really my place to judge. But as long as we're judging, okay, let's judge. They're not in a position to talk like that at all. A lot of these guys are completely controlled by their personal peccadillos, by their personal failings. And everyone knows that. So, like, how about stop? How about shut up? And I wish Trump had said that, because he knows that, because it's true.
Well, I just talked to Democrats, and I went, so let me get this straight. Bill Clinton, who I thought was a very good politician, interviewed him a few times, very
he's
smart.
Certainly a great politician.
One of the best natural politicians I've ever met.
Yeah.
But I said, in the end, the Monica Lewinsky scandal, the fact he paid somebody off $850,000 in another scandal, you put it all together, you think, okay, if you're going to play this card with Trump, do you not understand that this is going to come back and haunt you guys for eternity? In other words, if you get to that kind of ludicrously petty level where you drag a president through a criminal court over something so trivial, then this will never stop.
Right. Well, it also devalues Americans' faith in their justice system, which is a real cost. It's I think, a country-destroying cost. And if there's one thing, there's this constant conversation about what makes America, well, as we say, exceptional. Why is it different? Why do people want to come here? And you often hear the dumbest people in our society say it's because of our free market economy. We're rich. There are tons of rich countries. People want to move, don't want to move. A lot of rich people in Lagos, Nigeria. No one moves there. The main thing that we have always had is a fair justice system. Not perfect, but basically pretty fair, where every citizen is treated equally. I mean, that's the promise of the United States. And if you tamper with that, you're really messing with the core formula of the country. I mean, there's an egalitarian spirit that undergirds all of our institutions. I'm a citizen, I'm your equal. That's a Northern European concept that was brought to North America 250 years ago. It's worked great. People like it, no matter where they're from. And they are destroying that. The left is destroying that, with the complicity of lots of Republicans, too. It's not just the Democratic Party. But I don't think we should mess with that at all.
The other pivotal moment, it seemed to me, in the race was the assassination attempt, where Trump's reaction, I mean, my brother was a British Army colonel, for example, and he said to me, you never know how people are going to react till they get shot.
That's right.
That some people that you would least expect crumble, cry out for their mother. Other people who you may not expect to be that courageous leap up and go straight back into the fire. And he said, you just don't know. Trump's reaction was genuinely extraordinary, because he didn't know if there were other shooters in that audience. His natural gut reaction was to stand up, say, fight, 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 with blood pouring over his face. And it became not just an iconic image, but I'm certain that if there was any doubt, that's the moment he won the election.
Of course.
Did you feel the same?
Of course, because the prerequisite for leadership is bravery, physical bravery, not just conceptual bravery. I'm so brave. But actual bravery. The guy who leads the tribe is the guy who, repels the invaders, period. That's been true since we lived in caves, and it's never going to not be true. And, Kamala Harris would like it not to be true, because she's obviously a coward who follows instructions. And the leadership of both parties is that way. And Trump is unusual in that he has bravery. And people follow that. It's a matter of instinct. I do think that shooting, I hope that'll be examined.